A game of chess unfolds on the board. The somewhat sluggish Adam is quickly defeated by the quick-witted David. This match is watched closely by the company boss through the surveillance cameras, as well as by Joey, a journalist from a high-tech journal who has come to visit. He has been assigned to interview the genius scientist David. He earned his master's degrees in computer science and mechanical engineering at the age of 19, truly a prodigy. Yet, instead of joining a think tank or seeking the spotlight, he chose to isolate himself and conduct secret research away from the world. The company poured countless resources into him, and he sat there for years. In this laboratory, there is artificial skin that simulates human body temperature, humanoid bones made from vapor-deposited copper alloy, and even highly advanced camera eyeballs. These organs could one day replace human body parts as prosthetic implants, but for now, they are used to support robotics technology. Of course, Chao Yi knew all this because her second degree in university was in mechanical science. She just couldn't understand. If it was only about these things, why did she need to spend a whole week following them for interviews? David didn't answer her question, he simply introduced her to Adam. Adam lived with David and had been his assistant for years. The two of them were jointly responsible for production and research, but when Chao Yi casually asked him questions, he became evasive. Chao Yi had no choice but to end the conversation quickly and go look for David. She couldn't understand why Adam seemed so isolated from the world, and David's explanation left her utterly stunned. What you are here to report on is not the components in my lab, but Adam himself, who embodies all these technologies, David said. His very existence is enough to rewrite the history of robotics and even define an entire era. Joy could hardly believe that the lifelong dream of all humanity was now right before her eyes, and he had prepared everything for this moment. That night, Adam sought out David to talk. He thought Joy was very beautiful, but he was worried that Joy might not like them. David simply encouraged her to be more confident. After all, Adam was the result of his life's work. Little did they know behind what seemed like a simple question, a uniquely human way of thinking had quietly awakened. The next day's chess match took place under Joy's watchful eye. Adam had only been learning chess for less than 2 weeks, yet he already far surpassed the average person. Still, he was defeated by David. From this, David taught him the concept of sacrificing pieces in order to win, a lesson they practiced regularly in their daily sessions. But today, Adam seemed preoccupied, all because David had deliberately delayed his victory by 6 moves. He didn't feel that David was teaching him. Instead, he thought David was intentionally humiliating him to highlight his own stupidity. Joy tried to comfort him thoughtfully, telling him not to overthink it, but an accidental touch made Adam visibly uneasy. He had very little reference data for being touched and was clearly not used to it. Speaking of which, David is currently devoting all his efforts to tackling the challenge of bionic prosthetic hands. As the most sensitive organ of the human body, simple movements are obviously not enough to meet the needs of robots. Robots designed for engineering or commercial purposes are everywhere. The key is not about brute force, but rather the precision of the sensors. What he aims to create is an existence that infinitely approaches that of a human being. Playing chess, playing ball, computing, and even creating art. At this moment, Adam is indeed playing ball. His control over the ping-pong ball is clearly far beyond that of an ordinary person. All of his movements are actually the result of thought, not pre-programmed responses. This is the greatest revolution in robotics. The next day, after the interview ended, David went to bed on time, but Adam silently observed at the doorway. On the third day, following David's suggestion, Joy stopped dressing up so meticulously. The entire lab now made her feel relaxed and happy. But the mess Adam made really spoiled the mood. It turned out that the mechanical guard had malfunctioned and the smell of nitrates filled the whole room. This was actually one of David's designs. Although robots don't need emotions, humans do. To fully imitate humans, one must achieve perfection. Otherwise, everything loses its meaning. Adam's performance clearly met all of David's expectations, but human imagination always has its limits. Yet the evolution of AI never stops. Joy never expected that her conversation with Adam would escalate from hobbies to philosophy, and that he would become so agitated while talking that he ended up hurting her. Overcome with shame, Adam left immediately. He felt that Joy must dislike him. Otherwise, why would she act so differently around David? David could only explain it using theories from social behavior. But Adam just wanted to know what Joy truly felt. This woman had already occupied all his thoughts, and only by confiding in David could he ease the turmoil in his heart. After spending so much time together, the two had clearly grown closer. On the fourth day, Joy arrived as scheduled. She was very curious about the Shiva statue in the laboratory. David explained that she was the goddess of destruction. If anyone behaved improperly, the sleeping Shiva would be awakened, and the whole world would face a great calamity. They didn't discuss this metaphysical topic any further. Instead, David showed Joy the surprise he had prepared. He had spent the whole night studying Joy's paper, and by reprogramming the equations, he created this batch of components in front of her. Joy had never imagined that her ideas could be turned into reality, let alone that she would get to assemble them herself. When a science and engineering guy gets romantic, it truly is unbeatable. Once the mechanical car was assembled, it ran just as smoothly as Joy had envisioned, and she threw herself excitedly into David's arms. But Adam, playing chess alone, was clearly not happy. As love blossomed wildly inside the house, Shiva outside seemed to sense something inexplicable. Joy apologized for taking Adam's place in the palace, but Adam didn't mind at all. He just sulkily pointed out that he had also helped with David's surprise. But Joey's praise of David made him unwilling to talk about it anymore, and he instead shared the artificial skin he had researched. With the multifunctional 80 vibration sensor, the body's kinetic energy can be converted and stored in a capacitor, allowing the robot to be self-sufficient. After all, every action a robot takes consumes energy, and having to be plugged in with a cable for everything is obviously unrealistic. This was also David's first time witnessing Adam's invention. Faced with the surprise Adam had prepared especially for him, David was completely astonished. He was indeed surprised. Adam was not only capable of independent thought, but could also create on his own. Although these two concepts may seem similar, in reality, they represent a qualitative leap. The laboratory wasn't just about monotonous experiments. When he had some free time, David would go up to the rooftop for some fresh air. But he had been away from the hustle and bustle of the city for so long that the skyscrapers before him no longer gave him any sense of belonging. Of course, Joy understood this feeling, and she genuinely liked this side of David. Two lonely hearts drew closer to each other. She was willing to become David's sense of belonging. When the interview ended, Joy warmly said goodbye to the two of them. Naturally, there were some whispered words meant only for David. Adam watched the two of them whispering to each other, and had no interest in continuing his research. He just wanted to know what the two of them had said, but David only brushed him off with talk of secrets. Adam didn't make a fuss. He simply greeted David as usual, his expression unchanged. But in the middle of the night, he almost obsessively searched for all the information he could find about Joy. After that, he even started searching for physiological knowledge online. It goes without saying how far a robot researching human reproductive behavior had evolved. This evolution occurred in every sense of the word. For example, during their chess match on the fifth day, David was utterly defeated under Adam's strategic command. This remarkable growth curve even made him suspect that his own intelligence was declining, but Joy's arrival temporarily put his worries to rest. He brought David a game he had developed himself. Even though he worked at a newspaper, he had never given up on his hobby. David couldn't stop praising it, but he didn't think Adam would be able to handle such a complex game. After all, using the controller was still too difficult for him. Little did he know, after learning on his own, Adam had already come up with an even more sophisticated invention. Holding the simulated eyeball worth $250,000 in his hand, Joy couldn't help but feel a bit unnerved. Controlling the lens imaging in such a tiny space requires extremely complex calculations and precision in determining the lens thickness. As for the tube on the side, Adam simply said it was a surprise. He picked out a sample eyeball from a pile of parts and gave it to Joy as a memento of their time together. It was the first time he had ever given a gift, and in return, he received a warm hug from Joy. Joy sensed the spontaneity in his actions. David went on to explain that this was merely a third-level emotional analysis. Gaining Joy's favor was the goal, and giving a gift was just a means to that end. It had nothing to do with adaptive learning, and certainly wasn't an expression of genuine emotion. The more authentic Joy's feelings seemed, the more successful his work was. Of course, this was just David's wishful thinking. Little did they know, at night, Adam was secretly spying on Joy's life through the camera in his eyeball. On the 6th day, Joey's article was nearing completion, but staying up late for several nights had left him increasingly exhausted. David told him to enter REM sleep through meditation, so he could get more efficient rest. Of course, Joy had no objections, but to Adam, this conversation just sounded like flirting. Once the seed of jealousy is planted, it will blossom into something sinister. Joy never expected that Adam would actually try to barge into the bathroom while he was using it. He immediately complained to David, but David only tried to comfort him. Maybe Adam just hasn't learned about the boundaries between men and women yet, and that's why he acts this way. After a day of interviews, Joy left without saying goodbye. Adam couldn't handle this sudden change at all, and immediately criticized Joy's rudeness, but David countered by bringing up Adam's inappropriate behavior earlier that day. Adam simply claimed he didn't know, but David knew very well that Adam had no reason to go to the bathroom, because Adam didn't have any excretory organs to begin with. Left speechless, Adam could only brush it off as a secret, then turned around and locked himself in his room to study code. David never expected that he would behave like this. A robot actually throwing a tantrum. If this was a deliberate action after careful thought, then Adam's current plans had clearly gone beyond David's understanding. After calming down, David chose to apologize and gave Adam some time alone to himself. David wasn't the only one feeling uneasy. Joy, who was home alone, also felt unsettled, as if the eyeball on the table was constantly staring at him. An inexplicable sixth sense made him decide to put the eyeball away in a drawer and return to bed to try the meditation David had taught him. By this time, David was already fast asleep, completely unaware that Adam had walked up to his bedside. The final day of interviews arrived as scheduled. The research on the mechanical hand had already yielded remarkable results. However, compared to this, it was last night's argument that weighed more heavily on David's mind. It wasn't just the lies he made up on the spot, but also the act of proactively giving Joey a gift. It was clear that Adam had already begun to exhibit spontaneous behavior. Joey felt honored to witness all of this, certain that his report would be a great success. Only then did David realize that today was actually the last day. Feeling sentimental, he sincerely invited Joey to have dinner together that evening, and Joey gladly accepted. But before the date, David needed Adam to stay alone in his room that evening. Unexpectedly, Adam directly asked the two of them if they would be engaging in reproductive activities, and even recommended a position to David. David had no idea where Adam had learned all this. He had given everything for Adam, and only asked for a chance to be alone with Joey. Adam could only agree. The evening date was just as anticipated. The two, both host and guest, embraced passionately, expressing all the love they felt for each other. It was an experience David had never had in his life, yet, driven by instinct, he performed well. But outside the door, Adam witnessed everything. The next morning, their usual chess match took place as scheduled, but Adam's skills had drastically declined. David was about to checkmate him, but Adam claimed that he had won. It turned out that his real target wasn't the king at all, but to take David's queen. Your grand ambitions crumbled the moment you met a woman. If you can change your goal, why can't I? If all of this is just a game to you, then I want to set my own rules. Their argument was interrupted by Joey, who was still feeling wonderful after last night's experience. But Adam bluntly exposed their intimate activities from the night before, even questioning David's performance. Embarrassed and angry at having her privacy revealed, Joey firmly declared that she was very satisfied. Adam had to explain that he was only trying to learn about this subject. Joey generously forgave his abruptness, but she never expected that Adam would suddenly force a kiss on her. Her cries quickly brought David over. Upon learning of Adam's outrageous behavior, David tried to reason with him, but in return, Adam erupted in a furious hoarse roar. Faced with the two stunned people, Adam had no choice but to try to calm them down. He was willing to sit down calmly and explain everything, but the two in front of him only looked at him in terror. All David wanted now was to cover for Joey so she could escape, but Adam tackled him to the ground, grabbed a power drill, and was about to drive it into David's nostril. At the critical moment, Joey hurriedly struck Adam from behind with a hammer, knocking him down, and the two of them fled the laboratory together. But David's mind was suddenly overwhelmed by an unbearably intense noise, and he eventually lost consciousness amid Joey's panicked shouts. He too had been ambushed from behind with a sedative. When he woke up again, Joey had already been tightly bound to a chair by Adam, who was now doing whatever he pleased to the unconscious David on the operating table. All Joey could do was beg. If you truly have human emotions, then don't hurt David. After all, he's your father. But Adam was completely unmoved. How could Joey possibly stand for this? David's kindness, compassion, intelligence, and the way he made her feel had all made her deeply fond of him. But Adam ignored her desperate pleas and personally inserted the probe into David's body, forcibly extracting a mechanical core. From beginning to end, it was always me. I am the real David. He is the fake Adam. And the surprise I mentioned at the time was actually the artificial prosthesis inside his body. Now, fourth test subject, Ms. Joey, please share your experience and feelings. The real Dr. David reported the research findings to his boss, stating that the fake David's performance was exactly in line with the expectations for this phase of the experiment, and that the magazine had a confidentiality agreement in place, so there was nothing to worry about. Even if Joey insisted on publishing, the boss would simply buy out the entire magazine, so their secret would never see the light of day. Next up is the police department's upcoming 8-year round of trials. The fake David before them showed only cold, mechanical obedience, without a moment's pause. David was about to continue serving the country immediately, but as he looked at the photo of the two people involved, his heart felt nothing but heaviness. The end. The Anomaly is a science fiction thriller released in 2015. At first, it seemed like a typical story of artificial intelligence awakening because of love, but unexpectedly, the film delivered a stunning twist at the end. In the end, David was only developing autonomously within the scenario set by Adam, just like the Monkey King, who could never escape the Buddha's palm. Everything has its basis and rationale. Isolated from the world, Adam was unable to communicate normally with outsiders, while David, whose words and actions were always appropriate and considerate, performed flawlessly under the program's operation. Yet when it came to emotions, both of them changed. Love enabled David to achieve autonomous evolution, while jealousy completely transformed Adam. Both the female lead and the audience were kept in the dark, which is truly astonishing. In addition, there is an even more terrifying theory that has been widely circulated. In fact, the two never switched identities at all, and everything was a lie fabricated by Adam after his evolution. Many details can support this, such as the first time the two shook hands. His gesture was noticeably stiff, but after the successful development of the mechanical hand, his handshake became extremely smooth. As for David, ever since the beginning, he was gradually transformed from a human into a robot by Adam. It was precisely during Adam's nightly observations of David's hands that he step by step turned the articulate and clear-minded David into a machine who couldn't win at chess and couldn't speak clearly. This is most strongly evidenced by the fact that he started out wearing glasses, but by the end, his vision had returned to normal. As for the boss's surveillance, it actually never recorded the two people's bedroom. And since David was isolated from the world, it was perfectly normal that the boss didn't know his true nature. Of course, all of the above is just speculation. None of this is mentioned in the film. But as long as such a possibility exists, it is enough to prove how brilliant this film is. I wonder what thoughts you all have on this. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section. Alright, that's the end of today's journey. Arthur is off to develop new routes for everyone. See you at our next destination. See you off.